There's just 1 minute to showtime.
The engines are on.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
When they wrote up the systems and the rule set that we use, did working people get to write a line? What class of men on pen and paper jotted down their clues? With capital, the heart of their design. When 90 million want a thing, but some shareholders say no, which class of people get to have their way? The people read the fine print and say that this thing has got to go, and we'll start writing a new contract here today. Don't you know that hundreds will work and one man keeps the money? They don't think they gotta tell us why. When they say the new social contract, all the bosses will be gobsmacked and everyone will want a sign. Oh, yeah, everyone will want a sign.
Hello, cousins. Thank you for joining us for an all new episode of Social Contract. I'm Nicolette, and as you can see, we are missing our Mr. Mayor Jared this episode. He has just arrived home from a very lengthy trip abroad, and he's catching up on some much-needed rest. So we're going to it's just going to be us today, and we're going to let him get his good vibes going again, and hopefully next week he will have some interesting tales from the road to share with us about all of his doings and conversations, and we're looking forward to that. So take care, Mr. Jared. We also wanted to shout him out for a thank you. For a couple weeks ago, my internet went completely down on the day of the show, and to the point that we actually had to have a technician come out and look at everything, which doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, it's always because the neighborhood junction situation is overflowing, and inevitably when someone touches it, a technician or something gets damaged, and then they have to come right back out and fix it. So he, at the last minute, took over hosting duties by himself 2 weeks ago, and then last week we had a scheduled week off. So I'm very happy to be back with you. Get my words in order. I'm very happy to be back with you for this all new chock-full episode. So, as you probably already know, without me having to say, this has been a pretty headline-heavy couple weeks, anyways. I was so disappointed to miss the show with Jared because I was really looking forward to those topics and getting to have the discussion, and so I was like, oh man, come back, but the internet did not come back, so I didn't get to talk about those things. But now it always seems like after just a few days, whatever happened in the previous week is just ancient history. So we'll talk about current goings on that could be history next week. So this week, some of the biggest things going on that I want to touch on a little bit. I have some major topics I want to talk about, but a couple of things that you may or may not have heard. The first being, this is the last day for any kind of action to be taken for to stop for a stay of execution for Marcellus Williams. So if you have any interest in getting involved in that, time is running out. So, and that's a big thing going around right now. So look into that. Richard Branson even it got his attention, who took a full page ad out, and I guess it was St. Louis's, Missouri, newspaper to try to appeal to the powers to be to stop this and relook into the case. We don't know that that's going to happen, and we do know that being that it's a very one-sided, very racist system. The odds of them saying our bad are not great, but as we've seen in the past. So that's just an update for you if it's something that you want to get involved in or follow the case on. That's going on right now. Next would be that, which you probably also have heard at this point, Israel has extended its terror campaign into Lebanon now, and that's something that we've been talking about for pretty much the whole year. That even though it's kind of a fluid operation of where they're going to move to when, with, and by the way, complete backup and help from the United States. They are now have usurped the borders of Lebanon and are attacking Lebanon. There's been a lot of casualties already across the board. And this is, and I actually saw it trending right before I hopped on today. This is what we've been talking about, the Greater Israel plan. And this, it was never going to stop with Palestine. It was starting with Palestine. And it started with Palestine many years ago, decades ago. But at this point, now they really are moving forward with this gained momentum because there's been no movement to stop them, no ceasefire deals happening, no agreements. Neither candidate has made any movement on saying that they need to do anything. FYI, even though the country is currently operating without a functioning president, which shows you that we really don't need one, this could be stopped at any moment. Any moment this could, the weapons embargo could be stopped, and this could stop happening because obviously, if they were a rogue agent just doing this without the support of the West, then it would be looked upon by our government as, hey, you can't do that. But since they have our full approval and our full support to do this, and the people, the weapons contractors are making bank, and they know that they're going to have ultimate access to the resources and a stronghold in the region, the United States is in full support. And I say that, as an umbrella term, in that we're also talking about, all of our minions, which is, Australia and the UK, and so there's a lot of moving parts here going into this. Also, I forgot to mention, if you want to throw some comments in the chat, I'll try to comment back to you as much as I can. And if you have questions, comments that I can check after the show, like if there's something you want me to talk about or us to talk about more specifically, hit our DMs on Twitter, and we're at the number 1 social contract. So that's how you can find us there. And we are also broadcasting currently live on Twitch and YouTube. So make sure to do the whole like, subscribe situation with that as well. I forgot to mention that at the top of the hour. Anywho. Greater Israel. What that ultimately means, and you could look up some various maps about this, is that the ultimate plan here is to usurp the boundaries of the country surrounding Palestine to create, to force the country of Israel, because Israel is not real. Let's get real about this. It is a settler colony. It is an illegal settler colony. It always has been. It's on the land of Palestine, unquestionably. And now that they are trying to take over other regions, and so the plan of Greater Israel is now in effect. The U.S. has decided to send more troops to the region to support Israel, and ultimately that's really to start to get a stronghold against, to get ready to attack Iran, essentially. And there's been some I don't want to say musings. I guess it's musings for the people who are doing it, but there's been some comments coming out of the government. Some officials saying that they're also preparing for conflict or war with China in up to the point of 2027, and it's just absolutely insane. And for the most part, they do not have American support to do this. And this is another, I'm going to fold this into a topic that's going to come up a little bit later here. This is a prime example as to why it's so important to look at this upcoming election very, very critically, and say, you don't necessarily have to be, the number 1 fan of the Green Party. They have their flaws for sure. You don't have to be Jill Stein's number 1 fan, but voting third party, and if enough support comes in through third party, even though I think we can all look at this and say, there's no way a third party is going to win under these conditions. Okay, fine. They don't need to. but they need to take enough attention away from the main two candidates, who we all pretty much, if you're watching this, are in agreement are garbage, and have done nothing to quell anything except to say, each one is trying to say, I will Israel harder than the other one. So that's where we really are as far as that goes. And there's not been this whole talk of Kamala Harris winning all the support of former Reaganites and Dick Cheney, for Christ's sake. That's not good. That's really fucking bad, actually. That is saying that the Democratic Party has moved so far to the right that the Cheneys and former, most of Reagan's cabinet served jail time or had some sort of prosecution taken against them because they were all fucking criminals, right? So the fact of the matter is to have these people, or these people who are adjacent to those people, saying like, oh yeah, we back her up. And then I've seen liberals everywhere posting, she's got the support of 200 of Republicans. Like, where? I want you to explain. I want you to explain in your liberal words how you think this is an okay thing and a good thing. That is not a good thing. So out the window goes stuff that was already not on the table anyways, that we were promised, in the Biden campaign, which was raising the minimum wage, codifying, I guess you would say, that's our language, not theirs necessarily, but doing something about making, Roe versus Wade law of the land through executive order or what have you. You can run on laundry list. We're at the end of this whole thing. I don't need to do it, but all the things that didn't happen that were supposed to happen. And now all these new things, like, with Ukraine and Israel and stuff, that's all got to stop. So that's where we are in terms of current events, of where this whole thing is moving. And we know that we're just a couple of weeks away from the 1-year anniversary of the whole start of this mess in Israel, or in Palestine rather, and the October 7th situation. And so the whole thing, at least eyes are on it, because in let's say previous decades, previous administrations, this was something that Americans would just take at face value at whatever they were told on the news or in the newspaper, and run with that and say that was the official narrative. But we now know, many people now know, that the mainstream media is doing the dirty work of the government, of the of the Israel movement, of promoting Israel, and they're still promoting the beheaded babies rape situation, where we know for a fact, it's Hamas, and now it's on forever. That same narrative from them, they won't drop it. They keep forcing that issue when a lot of people already know, despite political leanings, already know that is actually not true, and that there is documented evidence of the Israeli army doing these things to innocent Palestinians. And now I'm guessing the Lebanese are going to be targeted next with all of these kinds of things. So that's where we're at right now, just in terms of current event updates. But something is, I think that when we look at this, if we look at this election objectively, we're seeing we're ultimately going to see, I think, the least amount of engagement maybe we've seen in a long time, despite the whole "this is the most important election of your life" narrative that we're always fed. It isn't, or this historic election. That's horseshit. And I think that it's going to be probably one of the most sat out vote, elections that we've had, and that is also a really good connection with the third parties. If you sit out this election, if you vote third party, you're essentially saying the same thing. You don't you don't have to be the Green Party or Jill Stein's #1 fan to try to send a message that, hey, I don't want to be a part of this. I won't be a part of this. I have been a faithful voter since I was 18 years old. I've never missed it. And I bought into the propaganda for many years, and then I think we all have that story. I think when we are, we've moved on to being, a socialist and part of the socialist movement, or whether we're a part of the movement in any significant way, or we just, adopt those beliefs, it all comes out of the disenfranchisement of having been a Democrat or maybe even a Republican and been like, this is actually all bullshit. Nothing good is happening. Things are getting significantly worse. If you look over the past 40 years, it doesn't matter what the age bracket of people were, whether it's, the boomers on down to the kids that were just, in this alpha, I guess it's alpha generation. There's nothing good, everything bad. It's been Reagan's wet dream is usually what I say about it, and that's where we're at right now. And with this whole runaway capitalist system that we're dealing with, things can and will get much, much worse. So we're not left with a lot of recourse other than what I'm always talking about forming unions outside of what do you call it, labor, and uniting, creating united fronts about what we're doing and what we want to do and how we want to do things. So that's really going to be our only recourse going forward. And I not only see that as a good thing, I see it as essentially impending. When people start really getting that idea, renters unions and tenant unions are coming back into vogue, and that kind of thing, and just unions in general, labor unions. And that's something I'm going to talk about here in just a second. But we also need, not all unions are created the same. Not all of them are the most scrupulous, excellent, good reputation, situations. So, but one that is doing something pretty interesting, because they're seeing what's going on here in the bigger picture, and I think that this is really important, and I hope it sets a precedent, because we know some unions. To me, union leadership needs to be more by committee than to have like an ultimate boss. Because we need to look at what representing these unions and these groups more objectively than just having one appointed official. And really everything needs that. Every local government needs to be done by committee. All the way up to the executives level should be done by committee instead of this one appointee. Anyways, the Teamsters union, the collective Teamsters union, has said that they, for the first time in 30 years, they are not endorsing a candidate for president. None, not one. And that is excellent. And the reason why that is excellent is because they are essentially standing up to the precedent that they and most other unions would do, is to pick a side. And whether that was done through like a collusion sort of situation, or some backdoor deals, because I think that any union that would side with Donald Trump is pretty sus right there. It's obviously not going to be doing right by its membership, and it should be looked into, investigated pretty significantly at that point. But the Harris campaign isn't really offering anything to them either at this point. And they know that they can get away with that because, again, going back to what I said, they've got all this Republican support. Instead of looking out to the, what most people want, you don't have to call yourself a socialist to feel like you are being, neglected here as an American citizen, or just someone who lives in America. You know that you're not getting what you should be getting. You know that you're not living the life that you should be living, just in a basic way. Nothing is in their control. Everything is, again, in this runaway capitalist situation where we're being, fed terrible food at extraordinarily inflated prices. There's minimum wage won't buy you anywhere to live in this country. People can't afford housing in any way, shape, or form. And so on and so on. You all know everybody is victim to some version of this. We're not making enough money. We're not having a good quality of life. We've got no health insurance, but we've got plenty of war machines making plenty of money for a very few amount of people. So when we have something like the Teamsters union, it's a very big and widespread union, come forward and say, we're not good for either one of these things. And in a lesser extent, I'm liking this story. I haven't actually heard any of her music because I'm old. Chapel Roan has come out and said that she is not going to endorse Kamala Harris, and I have seen every liberal spin of this in the media saying that her fans aren't having it. Go fuck yourselves, okay? Like, all right, she's not Taylor Swift, and I think that's the important part here. There are people here with voices that other people are listening to, whether you're the Teamsters union or whether you're a pop star, where people are listening, and if you take the right side of things, that's only going to be a good thing. And saying that you're just blindly going to support Kamala Harris because you know that your billion fans or whatever are going to do that, you're saying that you are entitled and privileged and an exceeding asshole that can turn the other way to genocide. Because I think a lot of us feel like not only are we personally not getting what we should be getting, living the lives that we should be living, there are people who are suffering greatly at the hands of the United States, so that a very small percentage of Americans, or at least not even American associates, can become infinitely wealthy. I think that you probably heard that Elon Musk, it's going to be a minute, but Elon Musk is on track to become the world's first trillionaire, and that should be absolutely fucking illegal. It should not happen. Anybody at any point you want to Mr. Robot this guy, like, I don't think anyone's going to object. But anyways, I digress. You know that I tangent. So let's go back to this. I want to read you a couple of quotes off of their official statement of the Teamster organization's official statement. And I can't share my screen, of course, because it does my computer, my browser doesn't like it, so I have to just read it. You have to just listen. But I figure that's what you're doing anyways. Anyway. As per their official statement, what they have said is, after reviewing 6 months of nationwide member polling and wrapping up nearly a year of rank and file roundtable interviews with all major candidates for the presidency, which I say, when they say major, I'm sure you can tell that that's leaving some people out. The union was left with few commitments on top Teamsters issues from either former President Donald Trump or Vice President Kamala Harris, and found no definitive support among members for either party's nominee. No definitive support for either party's nominee. That is wildly important, because that means that not only did they not just allow the leadership to choose on their behalf, when they looked at their own data, they found that there was no great support, for Team Red or Team Blue. And that means that they are listening to their members and they're taking it into account. And that's, key to a very successful union, as they have essentially always been. Now going in a little bit further, I don't need to read you the whole article, but I could tell you a couple of high points here. Let's see. Is this? Yes. And here's a quotation. Now, this is from the Teamsters General President, Sean M. O'Brien. And he says, the Teamsters thank all candidates for meeting with members face-to-face during our unprecedented roundtables. Unfortunately, neither major candidate was, again, that's a key word there. I am going to, tisk about that they, Jill Stein has been very clear that she is very pro-labor, pro-union. And I know that they don't see her as a major candidate, and she's not a major candidate compared to, nor the Libertarians or Independents, compared to the two mains, which is a huge problem. If we had something more akin to ranked choice voting, that really wouldn't factor in. But we have this corrupt system where both, and especially Democrats, both major parties have done what they could do to stop, on the state level as well, stop other candidates from taking part in the process. So I interrupted myself, but okay. Once again, to finish this quote, it says, again, this is from Teamster General President Sean M. O'Brien. Unfortunately, neither major candidate was able to make serious commitments to our union to ensure that interests of the working people are always put before big business. We sought commitments from both Trump and Harris not to interfere in critical union campaigns or core Teamster industries, and to honor our members' right to strike, but were unable to secure those pledges. That's super, super important to know. And the reason why is because that tells you as well that they don't have this tiny forget it memory, because they remember what happened with rail strike, where the Biden administration, including Harris, shut down a rail strike. Not so long ago, just a few months, or a year or so ago, around the time that the New Palestine train derailment happened. They were trying to say, look, we have problems. These people belong to a union. They are workers who should be having basic rights like getting sick days and time off. And the Biden administration, including Harris, that includes her, whether or not she was in the room, I doubt it, whether or not she was, you have to include her into this, said, no, they don't deserve sick days. They don't deserve time off. We don't care. And then they let Pete Buttigieg go out and be like, and yeah, okay, thanks, bud. Cool. We know how you got this position. So that's super important, that not only are they listening to their members, they are not endorsing just to endorse. They are not succumbing to the Trump derangement syndrome, which so many people are. That really is, I mean, if we've seen footage of people asking, like, well, what does Harris support? Did you support? And people are like, I don't want to be in this interview anymore. Ugh. You see a lot of that shit going around because, um, like, it really doesn't matter. It's the vote blue no matter who crowd, and which is bigger than you really seem to think, because I'm sure she has her fans, her own fan base, and what have you. But the fact of it is she doesn't stand for anything, and they have moved their campaign so far to the right that they are not worried about what anybody else actually wants, whether you identify as socialist or communist or not. They have just moved away from all of that stuff and moved into republicanism so hard that they are trying to win the same Republican votes who also are never Trump Republicans. And they've done their research. These teams know what they're doing. They've done their research well into the future. That's how this stuff works. They pay companies to do this kind of stuff. It's kind of marketing and the kind of I don't want to say surveillance exactly on people, but when people are watched on social media and trends are accounted for, and this data is, they crunch the numbers, they find out, oh well, we don't have the support, very good support, but we could really, really win over the more the Republican people who just hate Trump, which there are a significant number of. And after the debates, the first round of debates, and her whole coming out of, I'm going to run and this and that, the honeymoon on that ended, and the numbers went right back to where they're basically in almost dead heat. So and I really want to tell people, you really shouldn't trust the polls exclusively, because jumping your head back to 2016 when they were like, Hillary Clinton's a lock. It's going to happen. And now, you might look at it. It's hard to say, like, the candidates have gotten worse, because there was Hillary Clinton involved at one point, and then, in Biden. And so it's not that they've gotten worse. It's just the same pool of assholes. And now we're up to the incompetence. We're up to complete incompetence, because now we've got the top cop versus the top moron, and who are both leaning into republicanism as hard as they possibly can. So there is really no surprise that any conscious person with any degree of audience or speakability to people, that would say, I'm not supporting either one. And to be clear, on this show, we are also not supporting either one. And we've also been very critical of Jill Stein. We don't talk about libertarians, obviously. It's useless and stupid. We don't support, any of the other candidates for anything, really. But Jill Stein is the main green standout here. There are other green parties, but the thing of it is that she, she's sort of the figurehead of all of this. And I think we all know. I think she knows. She's not running a campaign to win. She's running a campaign to show you that there is an alternative, and the alternative is what a lot of people want, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum. If you are, a disenfranchised person who maybe has always voted Republican, thought of yourself as Republican, you too probably are very more likely to see that you are in a very bad economic and living condition. Blah, 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 blah. Get my words out. You are in a much worse place than you were. If you're older, then than the past decades. If you're younger, then you were born into this system and it's a complete mess, and you are in a very bad place, and this. You don't have to be told you are not allowed to believe that because you're Republican and we swear we're doing good things for you. Now, of course, you have people who think that they're going to become the next billionaire, and that's why they defend people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and don't even reason with those people. But the point is that there are, a lot more people who realize they're in a bad way than there are people who are willing to fight to stay in that bad way. But the Harris campaign is looking for, is really, really courting the people who want to keep things bad because they believe that they're going to, do better than somebody else. People that have naturally bad instincts about how they would treat other people, let's say capitalists. It's so ridiculous that people would think of themselves as capitalists when they don't own any capital. Like, you work for a paycheck, you don't have anything. You know, you own nothing, so therefore you are not up in that upper echelon of people. So it's really great when we see, whether you be pop star, whether you be a union, a very powerful union, when you come out and you say, this is not cutting it, because that's really putting a line in the sand of finally saying, we're not just going to do what everybody's done before and say, never Trump and blah, blah, blah. Because if those people had really done that, it wouldn't move the needle that much. Now, again, I want to cycle back to Taylor Swift, because I don't want to, because I would rather never speak of her at all. But the fact is she obviously, for God knows what reason, has a tremendous fan base who did a big register to vote movement. And it's sort of, you feel kind of like, I don't know, jealous of those people, her fan base, because it's like, how, like, I wish I could be that, like, enamored and that pacified by something so mid, like I also wish that I could not give a shit enough about anything to just, like, be influenced in that way and listen. Blah, blah, blah. Anyways, and it's not like she's not this entitled asshole to begin with, who nepotistically got to where she is to begin, to start off. And I'm not going to get into all that right now, because I have important things to talk about. But that's what we're talking about. When we're, she could have done much better by, she could have even been like, do some policy I want. And they would have probably done it, or at least said they were going to. But no, just looking out for her own self and forgetting about all the casualties, literal casualties of war, and how much worse things are going to get. And you can't forget that, and this is where this comes, those type of people make you forget, that are like literal pacifiers for people, that just because it hasn't happened to you doesn't mean it won't happen to you, or it hasn't happened yet. There's, at any point in time, things are getting so austere and so much more authoritarian all the time. When you look at the big picture about things, there's no leeway here. We're not going to get better unless we do things for ourselves and for each other. And whether you want to use the words like communism or socialism, or you don't, and those are the wordy dirds and you don't like them, most people want to live a better life, and they want to be in a country that's living a good life. So you can really only turn your back on what's going on internationally so long, and how the abuses that we are perpetrating against people who don't have the ability to fight back against the American imperial system. So to keep that in mind. I've mentioned Jill Stein a few times in this past half hour, and I will now get onto my next point, which is that we have been seeing, for better and worse, this has been used. She sort of is used as getting thrown back and forth, and being a representative of whatever point you have, however it is. And obviously the people who support what she's saying are like, here's the obvious. This is what we should be doing, like ending the wars, like saying when people are war criminals, but also understanding that diplomacy has to happen, because you shouldn't get to pick other people's presidents and leadership and stuff, ultimately, unless you're America in the 80s, or all the time. But the point being is, she is saying these what are very logical things, but she's being invited on these mainstream talk shows like Breakfast Club and Mehndi Hassan's program, and essentially it's so that they could be like, "Ha, gotcha," and then she'll come out and say like, "No," and then they handle it really well, because they all want to talk down to her, and they all want to say that you're ridiculous, and you're we saw you with Putin. FYI, Hillary Clinton has also been photographed with Putin, so I don't want to hear that stupid argument about who's fucking around who, whatever. But the point is that they keep trying to do these gotcha journalism moments on her, and she's really risen to the occasion, and every time, and said or done or shown that she can take the heat. It doesn't mind coming out and explaining. And I'm not saying this because I want them to stop doing it, like, I'm helping you, because I'm not. But these shows keep doing it when they are inviting her on these programs, and their agenda is to discredit her and talk her down, and then she makes a great case for herself, or just in general about, hey, everything is bullshit and it shouldn't be like this, beyond me and my own personal wants and representations. That just exposes her to more people who want the same thing, whether or not, again, they identify with the dirty words of socialism, communism. You know, and which are still it's still a big problem, the way that people react to that kind of stuff. If they would just forget about any of that stuff and just listen to the messages of how so many of us agree that, you know, this is not right. Domestically, we are not living like we should be living. Internationally, we're carrying out policies the majority of us don't agree with. And there's been a lot of polling on those kinds of things as well. A lot of polling has said, you know, there is very, very little support for Ukraine or Israel, particularly Israel. And we're not talking about, you know, anybody who's coming from a bad faith argument about that, like, you know, like it's like bringing Judaism into the fact of it. But, you know, but again, that's sort of hard to make that argument. It's like, okay, so the people who maybe already be prejudiced against Jewish people are then therefore going to be standing up for Muslim people? Not likely. You know, it's pretty unlikely. So, you know, that argument is kind of a non-starter of an argument. So, when we're hearing what we're hearing from Jill Stein in her campaign, I'm seeing she trends pretty frequently on Twitter. I'm looking at the you know, the statistics on her post, and they're getting, you know, sometimes a few million views. Whether the engagement's, you know, up that high, not necessarily, because pretty much nobody engages with anything. They just look at shit and keep scrolling. But the point is that I don't remember in my life, except for maybe Ross Perot, a third candidate really diverting that much attention away from the main candidates to their plight. And the difference between when I bring up Ross Perot is he was like a billionaire who could just afford to buy airtime, and he would just buy airtime and just sit there and talk. And he also was, you know, very much mocked by the establishment, by the media. You know, there was always big jokes about the way that he looked, and he was caricaturized quite a bit and satirized quite a bit. And now I was a kid, so I can't really recall much of his platform at this time, but I just remember all of that kind of stuff, that he was downgraded, you know, any way that possibly could be done. Now, I'm not seeing that with Jill Stein, and that's a good sign, I think. But what I am seeing is people are out here still trying to manipulate what she's saying and doing, and inviting her onto these high-profile shows with big audiences to say, to try to, you know, gotcha her, but it's not working. And in fact, I think it's exposing her to bigger audiences. When you look at the audience of the Breakfast Club, I would say that, you know, that would be, without really knowing, that would be, you know, a large, you know, Black audience, American Black audience particularly. And who is more disenfranchised than people of color in this country? Historically, obviously, but especially now too. They're always used as political fodder. They're always saying, we're going to do for you, we're going to do for you. But this last election, nobody's even saying, they're not even lying. You know, they're not even saying we're going to help improve lives in the Black community. We're going to work on the justice system to make sure it's not so inequitable that, you know, mostly people of color are targeted. You know, we're going to work on policing to make sure that, you know, no, none of that. There have been, every cycle, these promises are made to the Black community, to colored, the people of color's communities, and they are never followed through on, obviously. But this time they haven't even bothered to do that. So that's I think very telling about both parties, because they've gone right over the top of it. So when a very popular show like The Breakfast Club has her on there, and that audience gets exposed to her, even though they're trying to say you're bullshit, you're fake, you got a chance, such and such and such, you know, because they're a more established, you know, more established voice, then it has people who are like, well, wait a minute, well, I want to hear what she's saying makes sense, you know, that kind of a thing. So even though a lot of these people are trying to look at her and discredit her in a lot of ways, and ultimately it will work because she's not going to win. It just matters that um, more people hear the message, because this is in to my next point. It is a very good thing to vote third party, and it is a very good thing to non-vote. Whether do not listen to what you're being told, about not voting. Do not listen to about it's your duty, it's you must do. Every vote counts. Every vote does not count when we have an electoral college. The end. And every vote does not count when the Democrats openly say we will choose whatever candidate that we want, which happened when Biden was chosen. And they didn't even hide it. They didn't even hide that fact. Back in the day, there were these. Okay, I'm gonna reference something crazy here. So if you know me, you know that I love TV. Like TV, I love long format storytelling. I'm a TV fanatic going way back, like my entire life. And sometimes I will watch. I've been kind of lately going through some of my old favorites that I haven't seen in 10, 20 years. Right now, it's the original MacGyver. I was always a MacGyver fanatic growing up. And in that, I just watched an episode just recently where the NSA and this fictional kind of CIA faction called the DXS, the Department of External Services, colluded. A couple of agents colluded to kidnap a foreign dignitary and torture him to get information and to say that he was make these anti-American statements and to get all this information and stuff. And it was this big secret plot, and MacGyver and Pete and everyone, they foiled the plot. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because in the 80s, just the middle late 80s, that would have been done in secret. That's exactly what that was done. Like it would have been, people would not have been talking. Like it would not have been out in the open. It would not have been, it was this big risk that these agents were taking, and they would be rogue for sure. Nowadays, that shit's just done right out in the open with the approval of all of these agencies and governments. The way that the countries are invaded, and that generals are targeted and killed, and the whole thing with the exploding phones here recently. This kind of stuff would have been, 35, 40 years ago, this stuff would have been high level against public interest, so bad that we had to keep it a secret. Nowadays, that shit's right out in the open, and they don't even care, that this kind of stuff has been done. And I, as I was watching the episode, and that's exactly what I said. I said, this would be, nowadays, if this was happening, this would have been done just right out in the open, and nobody would have made any objections. And that tells you that we are in a runaway imperialist, not just runaway capitalism, but a runaway imperialist system where the United States and its allies now see themselves as infallible and now see themselves as the ultimate imperial power who cannot be defeated. And if they get challenged by anyone, then they're going to set up a situation like in Ukraine where they start trying to aggravate the borders of Russia and push on them. And, and this goes back many years. And let's not forget about the whole Donbass situation in 2014, where that was under Obama, by the way, where the Ukraine stuff basically failed. It wasn't as mature enough of a plan as it ultimately became. And now here we're like, 2 years into this Ukraine nonsense. Zelensky's still out there with his hand out, and the media is still platforming. He did another sit-down interview. I don't remember with who, but he did another sit-down interview recently. And it's like, this old shit, like nobody supports this anymore. Anybody who's paid any attention to anything at any point supports this. And if you have been paying attention, then you know that Biden came out a while ago and said, we're paying their pensions so they have money in their pocket. We're buying all of their resources. We're supplying health care. We don't have those fucking things. Israel gets free fucking health care. They get to come here and get anything they want done whenever they want. We can't even do that. If you look at literally any other normal healthcare system in the world, you don't have to get referrals. You don't have to make 100 appointments so that they can keep charging your insurance or your Medicaid over and over and over again. You get everything done in one shot. And that's the way it is. Logically, you leave a place, you go into a center, to help you, and you leave a place with an answer or a diagnosis or a treatment of some kind. And if you have to come back for surgery, then you come back for surgery. Yes, some countries, because all the systems are different, and the size of the country does matter, and the needs of the country matter. So yes, there are waiting lists for certain things, but there's nobody needs to have this explained to them that universal health care works and it's cheaper. And when you hear this stupid idea that Americans like to pay 20% out of their paycheck for health care, they like no, they don't. They don't like having their insurance tied to employment. They don't like that they have to go and do 100 fucking appointments at 100 fucking places with months in between. We were talking about like cancer treatments and shit. And now we have a country who's been exposed rapidly and repeatedly to an incredibly destructive virus, not unlike AIDS, that with no exit strategy here. Okay? So, and it's already leading to major problems, and it's going to lead to more problems. Well, you get it. More major problems. So keep that all in mind. We are not, we are not going down a good road. We haven't been. If you think that things are just going to magically improve, I've got news for you. I got a bridge to sell you, because things have gotten worse for people, but better for corporations. Over the past 40 years, we see. I keep saying that as an example because this is Reagan. This is all Reagan. Everything goes back to Reagan. But if you look at that, you look at now, this is what they did to piece and parcel off the government to corporations, to give them say-so, to infiltrate the situation, to listen to lobbyists, to take handouts, to have all these super PACs, IPAC especially, RPAC, the Israel lobby has, now you want to hear this stupid foreign influence, Russian influence, Iranian influence. That's bullshit. When right out in the open is the Israeli PAC that is literally paying for everything and paying these people off. And you can see the numbers. There are people who track the numbers. I'm not going to quote the numbers right now, but I think it was something like 5 million that I might be wrong about that, but I think it was off the top of my head that Kamala Harris so far has received $5 million from IPAC. And that's everybody else too. Trump has received money, and the Clintons received money, and Obama received money, and the lower rungs of these politicians receive money to do the work. It's not something for nothing. This is to do the work of what Israel was, because we want what Israel wants. We're using them like a tool to do the work in Israel, to expand the United States imperialistic stronghold in the Middle East, not only for acquisition of resources, but for acquisition of land, for to create a country, for lack of a better way to put it, to create a country that will dominate the Middle East. And we're talking about Iran and Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Syria, all these places that have, been historically maligned, and some deserve, some not. No countries are perfect. But by doing that, this is sort of the last horizon for American imperialism. And at that point, there's really no stopping the machine. So there's no reason for you to assume that things are just going to get better, that this is going to stop, that people are going to stop behaving this way, that the candidates are going to get better, that there's going to be a better option. So that's why it is so important. That's just one of the many, many reasons that it is to subvert the system and look at things more objectively. You say, of course, I don't want Trump, but Harris is also complicit in this. Here's the laundry list of things of her administration never did. And now she wants to take over and not do these things also stop this. So, okay, are we going to just agree for another 4 years, we're going to let this region of the world get terrorized? And we're also not going to see a raise in minimum wage. We're not going to see anything done about housing or food deserts. We're not going to see anything done about living conditions. We're not going to see anything done to raise the standard of clean living, what the EPA should be more in charge of. We're just going to keep letting, the world gets sicker and people get sicker. We're not going to see anything done meaningfully in regards to climate change. We're just going to keep letting the tornadoes and the forever fires happen, and the hurricanes, it's whatever, because it's not impacting, certain people. So you're not looking at the bigger picture here. But for a lot of people, primarily poor people, primarily people of color, this is their everyday life. They are the most at-risk groups of people. And you hear all the time that there's no more working class, and there isn't, because now this is the exact plan to get everyone, to really dichotomize things as rich and poor, because poor people can't afford to fight back. They can't afford to lose the health care with their jobs. They can't afford to buy anything. They have to rent things. They have to pay all kinds of junk fees. They get penalized for things more, which obviously which floats the boat for rich people when they have to pay things like overdraft fees or higher costs of for food or transportation, which also should be free. It's like you can literally take any piece of this and pull on that string and see how it for people who are wealthy and benefiting from this system by getting people into corralling as many people into poverty as possible. They can live off of those people and gain off of those people, because it's expensive. It is expensive to be poor. It is expensive to be homeless. You are constantly subjected to higher costs of living, to higher credit card, rates. You don't get good rates on things. The fact that we have a credit system is fucking ludicrous. And if we don't look at these things more critically, like yourself, you don't have to be part of a movement. You don't have to give a shit what I'm saying, or any of us, on the left. You really don't have to care. But you look at your life. Maybe make a list. Maybe make a mental list. Like, what's wrong with my life? Is it all coming down to the way you live? Because it pretty much always is. Did you want to have more kids, but you can't afford them? Did you want to buy a house, but you can't afford it? Did you want to not have 3 jobs, but you can't afford it? Did you want to, take care of your teeth, but you can't afford it? That's not your neighbor doing that to you. That's not China doing that to you. That's not Russia doing that to you. That's not Iran doing that to you. That is your government doing that to you. And it has run rampant. And I'm not saying that I do not want to promote the message of every vote counts and every vote counts, because it doesn't. When you live in an oppressive system, the only way that you can make your voice heard is by joining movements or taking place in movements. Okay, look at the way that the anti-war pro-Palestinian rallies happened over the summer, and with students. Of course, it's kind of backed down now, because it really just amounted to a lot of people getting hurt and harmed, and it did not move the needle. America is still gung-ho about letting Israel be the attack dog of all of this, and now they're in Lebanon. So it's hard to say, well, those protests did nothing, because they did. What they did was influence other people and get other people to realize you have to think about other people. You have to think about people you will never ever meet. You have to think about people you will never lay eyes on, because that is what it means to be human and maintain your humanity. You cannot just allow this insane imperialistic governmental system in collusion with other world governments, France, Britain, Australia. You can't just let them enrich themselves at the expense of everyone else, because eventually it's going to get worse for you. Just because, look at the way things are, with the way policing is. That is, police exist to protect capital, not to protect people, not to help people. The criminal justice system is essentially a front for getting people incarcerated, and that is now why many places are trying to criminalize homelessness, because you get them into the criminal justice system, right? Then there's all kinds of fees associated with that turns the wheels of capital for a lot of people up in the higher echelons. Then you get them incarcerated because they're repeatedly offending by not being able to live somewhere. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? So you get them into the jail system, and that creates more capital. And then those people are farmed out to every major company in the United States and the greater Western world to work as slave labor. And it actually literally is legal slavery. And this is not new. It is just absolutely like getting capitalized on more than it has before. But every major company, and they farm them out to places like McDonald's and fast food restaurants and factories and all these different places. And then they don't get but a small amount, if that, of the money, the wages that they make. And then we're told, and then people don't get those jobs because the companies are not having to pay them anything, or they get it to work at a discount by hiring this slave labor and not having. Let me put my words in order. If they have the slave labor companies run by the criminal justice system come in, then they could pay a lesser amount, and then the criminal justice system still takes most of what they've made, if not all of it, anyways. So they pay a lower rate. Then then the criminal justice system takes away that puts them in the work programs, takes away what they've got in the first place. So it's a very symbiotic relationship. And it's not as easy in this case as saying, well, boycott these things, because they're major organizations and that own many, many, many other companies, even ones that seem small and independent. You couldn't hardly live in life if you see the full list of things, because it's, things that relate to business. It's things that relate to food. It's things that relate to products that we use. It's things that, industries like car industries and things like that. Like, you cannot avoid these things. And they know that. And this system is benefiting from it. And then you are told nobody wants to work anymore. So I think there's something, majorly wrong here. So, I want to bring it back around on the guitar here and get back to my point. It's all these little things. If you pull any one thread, the whole picture becomes visible to you. Mixed metaphor. But the whole picture becomes visible because you can see how interwoven all of these things are. And they're all done that way and have been worked on that way and worked together and colluded and to make this nightmare quilt of society where the upper echelon of society benefits from doing these things. And the more people they can put underneath that quilt, the more they will benefit from. And by doing that, and being allowed to do that, and by the major candidates for years and years and years saying, we're going to keep, we're not going to address it. We don't even talk about it. We don't have anything to do with any of this. It's just going to be what it is. And bureaucracy takes time, incremental change. Don't buy that argument from anybody of incremental change. They say, you don't know the government works. The government works exactly how it's supposed to work, which is not in your favor. And that is, exactly what we need to be looking at and working together. And that's where I always come back to, we need to form unions outside of labor, like tenant unions, just by way of being people, and start fighting for our rights on the local level, start fighting for our rights on the national level and the international level, saying if we're not, if you don't give us health care, we're going to stop paying our credit card bills. If you don't give us, what we need to survive, then, and when you do things through boycott and money is involved, you get people's attention pretty quick. So, in so saying that, something that you can do is vote third party or withhold your vote. And I know that is antithetical to everything you are being told, but there's something really important that I want to convey. And I hope that people, if you take nothing else away from this, and I hope I get the chance to say it many, many more times. This is something I've just learned in my life. If you make decisions based on fear, you are always going to make the wrong decision, because you are not thinking clearly, and fear is probably the most powerful feeling that any of us ever will feel at any time in our lives. The worst one. Nobody wants to be feeling afraid, and that and the Democrats know that. And that they're using that against you with the whole Project 2025 bullshit and Trump derangement syndrome, and trying to say, oh, we're doing genocide, but he'll genocide so much harder and also probably your rights or whatever that we also lost underneath Democratic rule. So, and did nothing to protect or save, even though it could have easily been done. So, don't vote for Kamala Harris, period. But don't vote for Kamala Harris because you're afraid Trump will win. Because they're the same. They are the same. There's only so many PACs. There's only so many corporations. There's only so many wealthy donors. There's only so much dark money. Because that, it seems infinite when you don't really know where this comes from, but it's not. It is, in fact, finite numbers of these things. And they ultimately, I lost my train of thought. My TV flashed in my eyes and it went black, and it made me lose where I was going with that. But the point is that they are, there's only so much to go around, and I remember what it was. So if you look at all of that on a whole, they're obviously donating to the same people to get the same outcome. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if it's red or blue. Why does IPAC, for example, give to both people instead of just Republicans? Because they're hedging their bet. They're making sure that their bases are covered. Whether you win or these tiny elections throughout the rest of the country, that is where they ultimately succeed. And I just use them as an example, but if you look at it and you put it all under one umbrella and you say, okay, there's only so many of these people, there's only so many of these corporations, they do actually have a finite number on them, then you realize that they have to be, in order to remain successful, in order to remain dictateful to have say so in the government, then they have to be paying off both sides. They have to be having meetings with both sides, and that's on the national level and the international level and the local level as well. So keep that in mind. The big thing of it is the bad guys pay off both sides, which make both sides, red and blue, bad guys. So if you are voting for Kamala Harris because you are afraid of Trump, they are equals. They might say the message in a different way. Obviously, she's going to be more coherent, kind of. She's known for her weird laughing at weird times and saying weird shit just as much as Trump. People seem to like her tennis shoes better or whatever. So the fact of it is they might be saying things differently, but they're saying the same thing. And even if they're saying one thing, saying and doing are two different things, because look at how the last 4 years have gone, and then look at Trump's previous 4 years, and then look at what they're promising for the next 4 years, because we've already had Trump. We know what he's all about. We've had Biden, which for whom she served. So we know what that's all about. So nothing is going, in Biden's own words, nothing is going to fundamentally change. You cannot look at this as some sort of savior event. You cannot act out of fear and vote for her because you're afraid of him. They will enact the same policies. They will ignore the same needs. They will push imperialism on the rest of the world. And if we don't make some kind of grand statement, which, won't work the first few times, but we have to say, okay, we don't have the opportunity to everybody talk to everybody all the time, right? We have the internet. We aren't able to use it to its full extent of greatness that it could be. We use it mostly for just bitching at each other and cats. And the cat part is great, but we don't use it for the full extent of greatness that it could be. But when we get these elections coming around, you have an opportunity to at least make a statement and work with people that you don't know, you'll never know, that aren't part of your life, that aren't part of your belief system, that aren't part of your legislation. It doesn't matter where you fall on the political spectrum. Things are not good. And if you say, I'm going to be strong, I'm not going to work out of fear, I'm not going to just vote for her because I'm scared of him or what might happen, because you need to realize it's already the same, it's already happening, then by not voting or by voting third party, you are showing that you are rejecting that system and that you're being strong and that you are not going to be bluffed and you are not going to be lied to anymore. And that's the kind of thing that makes these people scramble, because right now they think they've got you. Both teams think they've got you because they believe that you're going to be too scared to vote for him, so you're going to vote for her. You're going to be too scared to vote for third party, so you're going to vote for one of the two of them. And that's where we land on all of this. Is they are bluffing you. They think that you're bullshit. They think that you won't take that step. And I will say this: in a lot of places, there are Greens in lower levels, in the lower rungs of government, local things. And there are other people independent sometimes. And no, they're not going to be great. It's still government. But what you can do is still, if you want to do absentee, order your ballot, or if you want to go in and vote, look at the your governor's race, your mayoral races, your various committees, your dog catcher race. Look at these things, and if you're in like a deadlock red state, just vote for blue or green, just to be an asshole, if nothing else, because you can help things in your local area without engaging in the national presidential race. You can vote on your ballot. You don't have to fill the whole thing out. You can leave blank whatever you want to leave blank. Just make sure that everywhere has different rules about how things are to be done and such. So just make sure that you're following the rules about where you write, how you write, what you fill in. And I recommend doing absentee, because a lot of places the ballots can be very confusing and very hard to metabolize right in that moment. And if you go in to vote, you might be feeling a little overwhelmed or stressed, or you're worried about taking up too much time, or maybe if you have a disability, you can't stand there for very, very long and sit there and go over it and over it and over it. But if you get an absentee ballot and you bring it to your home and you go over it and you read it and you read it and you read it, you read all the rules, you read all the, if you've got ballot initiatives, you can read over those, you can Google your candidates in real time. So I recommend in a big way getting an absentee ballot, just so that you can really take your time and think about it. And you don't have to send it in. If you decide this is horseshit, this is a Republican lock, I would never vote Republicans in local or anything, who cares? You don't have to send it in. But at least kind of inform yourself in that way, and realize if you don't vote, or you vote third party and you do it intentionally, you are sending a message, and you are saying, I won't be scared. I won't be taken advantage of. You're not going to keep doing this to me. And if you're less worried about yourself, maybe think about younger people, or if you have kids or grandkids, think about their futures, because things are already bad now. Can you imagine what 20, 30 years are going to be? All of us poor lefties are probably going to be dead because we have no health care. But, things are going to get way worse. And that's, that I'm a more optimistic person. No, I don't like putting out that kind of message, but they're worse than they were the decades past. They're going to keep getting worse. Things are getting worse at an accelerated rate, nationally and internationally. And if you want to try to do something about it, that's the only way we can really band together. We got before I wrap up here, we got a quote from a chat from Are You Time Traveler 2, who says, vote Jill Stein. So, that's their plan. And she's not on the ballot in every state, but, look at your locals, do what you can with what you have, and don't make fear-motivated decisions on anything ever in your entire life. Like, if I could give anybody advice, don't make fear-motivated decisions on anything. Look at things objectively, and this is no different. So I thank you for being with me for this hour. We can anticipate our own Mr. Mayor Jared being back with us next week, and I hope he will regale us with tales of his travels on the road. He loves to talk to people and see where their heads are at and what politics are like, and political climates and in different parts of the world. And so maybe he'll have a report back for us on that. And we're looking forward to hearing it. And we hope that he had a very nice, restful day. And I wish for the rest of you watching and who eventually watch to also try to get some rest and put some thought behind maybe a voting strategy. Again, don't make fear-motivated choices. It's just going to help you out in the long run. And thank you for being here with me again. As always, you can reach us at our Twitter, which is at @1social contract. And our DMs are open, and we will, if you have a comment, question, something that you want us to maybe address on the show, we'd love to hear from you. So we appreciate you as well. Remember, again, you can watch us every week live on YouTube and Twitter, or live on YouTube and Twitch, and then on we pin to Twitter because they changed their live broadcast rules. So you can find us anywhere, and we also we have our past episodes on YouTube and Rumble, so you can, if there's something you want to know if we talked about, you can check our episodes for previous descriptions. And again, thank you so much for being here with me and keeping me company. I appreciate you. We both do. And we will together be seeing you next week. So take care of yourselves and each other. Try to get some rest. Make a voting strategy. We will see you. So.